He's 4.3 speed guy again. Do you think where do you see the 49ers placing Marquis Seagull early? Because I feel like nickel's kind of his best tape.
I think they're going to play him at safety, and I'll tell you why. I think he's very similar to the skill set that Jimmy Ward had when he came out of college. You talk about the same size. They're literally 5'11", 199 pounds. It's almost identical. Jimmy Ward actually 191. And Seagull's got more speed. But the way that Robert Saleh used Jimmy Ward was his flexibility to be able to go into the slot or then play the deep third or come into the box. He kind of moved them all around. And I think that's the idea of getting a guy that has corner skills that can play safety. And so I think that they were very targeted on the type of player they were looking at. The other guy they met with in the process was Andrew Makuba. And you know this better than anyone. That's the same kind of player that he is. Former nickel corner at Clemson, comes and plays safety. I think that's what they wanted from that free safety position. They want versatility when it comes to nickel and dime packages. And I think they got it with Seagull. So I think this was a very strategic move by the 49ers, but a skill set that we like to see from a guy that really plays a lot more physical than a 5'11", 199-pound guy. He's actually a lot stronger coming out of college than Jimmy Ward was. Jimmy Ward was not strong. They tried to move him to corner because of those skills. I just think he's a similar player. That's how the 49ers plan to use him.
Look at that. Slick says that's what I saw when I watched Seagull. Jimmy Ward 2.0. I didn't see it, but you opened my eyes, and voila, there it is. And, last year with all the cover one and cover one under, and seeing guys like Jair Brown manned up with tight ends, and it's just like, oh, don't do that. That is not. So, I get it. And that's not a knock on Jair Brown. That's not his skill set. But Marquis Seagull, that is his skill set, right? So then the question comes to this, and this is the title of the show. Who are the 49ers long shot starters? Shout out to Ant for coming up with this. Let's talk about the safety position. Jair Brown starting week 1. That's just, it seems to be a matter of fact. Had a terrible year last year, but so did everybody on the defense under the worst defensive coordinator in 49ers history. Jason Pinnick gets $2.2 million fully guaranteed 1-year deal. Marquis Seagull. You bring in lots of other guys, but who do you have starting week 1 with the Malik Mustafa injury? Who do you think is going to be that number 2 safety out there? George Odom? Who's your long shot starter for that number 2 safety spot week 1?
I think it's Pinnick. And the reason being, you go back and look at his film, and he was a former nickel as well. This is a guy that shows versatility to walk up into the box. He's also a very good blitzer coming out, as well from that kind of dime nickel type role. But he's got some of those versatile skills to be able to cover. And I think that's what they were really looking for, is versatility for Robert Saleh. Jair Brown is a guy that, even though he misses a lot of tackles, he operates the best kind of around the box. I think that's his best situation for him. I worry about him when he's covering a deep third, which I wonder about Pinnick as well. But I think that they believe, and this is a Robert Saleh forward draft pick, so they have a really good idea of what his skill set is. I think that they plan on playing him next to Jair Brown early, and then I think at some point they would love to work Seagull in, but I think that they are even looking at this as potential that Seagull's not ready to go this year. Malik wasn't supposed to play last year. Malik was supposed to marinate and get ready to go, but we had the Hufanga injury. You had the inconsistent play from George Odom, and so you just had to go ahead and go that direction. So I think that that's what their plan is, and I like the skill set of Pinnick, and I think he's going to add some things to this team. And if you look at a few things the 49ers did in this draft, Nick Martin is a tremendous blitzer. Upton Stout is a tremendous blitzer, and Pinnick is a great blitzer as well. That's not a draft pick, but just something to remember. Saleh doesn't blitz a lot, but when he does, he usually blows you up with some sort of overloaded blitz, and I think that's what the 49ers are going to do a little bit this season.
Yeah, and I will say this about safety. It's the one spot that you got the bodies. Even if Pinnick doesn't work out or Seagull doesn't work out, that safety room, it is peppered with a lot of playing time. George Odom, Jason Pinnick, Upton Stout, Richie Grant, Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa when he comes back, Marquis Seagull, Jalen Mahoney was one of my favorites. Your favorites too. I remember at training camp, Jalen Mahoney was showing out. Now he's undersized, whatever else, but he's a quality player. Even whenever they called him up with all the injuries last year, he was awesome till he broke his arm. Quindell Johnson. This is the one position where you have depth, you have experience, and you have bodies. It's just, how is it going to shake out? There's no way you're keeping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 safeties. But there are options there. Now, the question then shifts to, all right, let's go to corners. I don't think that there are as many options at corner. And I think probably one of the weakest depth spots on this roster is, man, you got 2 clear-cut starters. A lot of teams don't have that. So Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green. Okay, cool. Boom, boom. Now, that number 3, is it going to be a nickel guy? Kyle Shanahan says, we want guys to play one spot. Like he says, we want guys to play one spot, which means they're okay with Demo going in and out, but they would prefer to just keep him outside. Well, then if that's the case, then your nickel corners, like who's that going to be? Is Upton Stout already in it? You bring in, you've got Trey Avery, Chase Lucas, Trey Tomlinson, or do you go with an outside guy, Darrell Luter Jr., Siren Neal, who a lot of people kind of flew under the radar. Everybody talked Trey Brown because that got announced first. Siren Neal get paid twice as much with $1.1 million guaranteed. Like Siren, like you look at Trey Brown, like it's a quarter of the guarantees and contract. So Siren Neal is a player that I don't think they're talking about. Trey Tomlinson is a player that I don't think people are talking about. What are your thoughts on this corner position and some long shot starter competition, guys?
Yeah, I do think that there's going to be a lot of competition. I think their first option right now would be Upton Stout prepared to play nickel corner, but we don't know if that's going to work. We have seen the 49ers be able to pull this off where they get a guy who they draft who could start, but it didn't work out long term. You look at Sam Womack, they drafted him to play nickel corner. He played it for 2 games, and then he had to be subbed out. Diamador Lenore took over, which I believe it was Diamador Lenore's original draft role. So they try to hit on these guys. And I think Upton Stout would be the first choice. He's going to get thrown out there into the mix the same way Renardo Green did, and they're going to see if he could develop. But I think what they did also was take some guys, and you brought up Trey Brown and Trey Tomlinson and Kieran Neal, some guys who have some experience, some ability, and just see what happens when they get into the system. I'm interested to see what happens with a guy like Trey Tomlinson because this is a former teammate of D. Winters at TCU. This is a guy that John Lynch has watched a lot of. And when he became available on waivers, the 49ers went out and got him. And so I think that he's an interesting prospect because I think that there's a lot more there. I mean, this is a former 2nd-round pick. He didn't work out for the Rams. That didn't work. He barely played at all, in the last 2 years. So this is definitely a projection, but I do think he's in the mix to compete. So he's somebody that I'm still keeping an eye on, that I'm really curious to see what he could do in training camp because I liked his TCU film a lot. I think that he's got a lot of the characteristics the 49ers love. He'll come up and stick you. He comes up and he fights for the football. So he's somebody that I haven't written off yet, and I think he could actually beat out a guy like Trey Brown. But there's an indirect competition between Upton Stout and Trey Brown and Trey Tomlinson to see who gets it. If Upton Stout's the best nickel corner or close to Diamador Lenore, he's going to win this role.
Oh, I like to hear that. And I'm so curious what they want. Like, it seems like they always go experience week 1 and then allow, like, okay, give the experienced guy that, like last year in training camp, George Odom took 100% of the snaps for team 1 safety all through training camp, all through preseason, and then you get out there week 1, week 2, does it work out? Yeah, that Vikings game, I don't know if you remember that one. And then after that, they're like, all right, this ain't going to work. But he got every single first team snap. Now, you had the same safeties coach and Bullocks, but you got Ray Brown, new defensive back coach. You got Robert Saleh. There's some changes there. So I'm just curious if they continue the, hey, let's put some vets out there first and let the rookies solve it, or do you just say, hey, we drafted this dude in the 3rd round, Upton Stout. 3rd round. Get this dude out there. He's playing. We're launching him up the depth chart. I want to see how that's going to pan out.